So, I mean, it's sort of a multi-layered question because if it's just physically, what is the most physically fun or artistically fun character to do? I mean, you got to take all of everything into consideration.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Movement Radio. I am Chip Hazard.
Cheers, folks. I'm Talon Williams.
I'm Roger Sierra.
And we are joined by a man that absolutely needs zero introduction. You know him as the voice of Android 17, as the voice of Shao Tucker.
Yeah.
Yes,
that guy.
We are joined.
Good.
We are joined by the man himself, Chuck Huber. Chuck, how are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you guys?
Fantastic.
Good. I had some mouth situation going on earlier, so I had deep cleaning and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm going to the dentist tomorrow at 10, so I'd like to know how that goes.
Very good.
Gotta get this thing fixed.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. But it ain't about me, it's about you, Chuck. Thank you for being here with us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So normally on our normal podcast, not the interview portion, but just when we're just talking to ourselves and everything, we do a Reddit story. And today, with Chuck here, I wanted to do an interesting one that I found. Just want to see what everybody thinks and reacts. It's a little wordy, but it's actually pretty wholesome and kind of funny. So I just wanted to see how everybody reacts to this situation from, looks like 2022. So the title of this one is "Today I Messed Up by Donating $15,041 to a community in Bangladesh instead of the $150 donation I intended." All right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little oopsie there.
Yeah.
But so premise is my wife and I, both 31 years old at the time, moved into a new 3-unit apartment in San Francisco. And our neighbor is a 70-year-old veteran. We call him Joe. And for context, Joe is just a normal American guy, but he's also a devout Hindu priest. So one day I run into Joe in my hallway and he tells me about this charity he manages for a community in Bangladesh. And I wanted to support my neighbor and the charity, so I asked Joe to send me the GoFundMe link. So the next day at work, I go onto the GoFundMe page and donate $150, or so I thought. Moments later, I got a text on my phone warning me of an unusually large transaction on my credit card. I'm confused and I open up the text message and it says I have made a payment of $15,041 to GoFundMe.
Ooh.
That's always the text we want to see.
He hit that zero one too many times.
So I immediately start sweating, and how could I have donated $15,000? I spend the next 10 to 15 minutes tracing my steps, and I finally realized my credit card starts with the number 4 and 1. And it seemed I actually started typing my credit card information while my cursor was still in the donation box. So just like that, 150 became 15,041.
Wow.
So I call GoFundMe support line, and when I finally connect with a human, I explain what happened. No need to worry, he tells me they will initiate a refund on a transaction, which should take about 3 to 7 business days. That's a huge relief, but then I asked the agent if the charity will be able to see the donation on the GoFundMe page until it's refunded. The agent asked, "What do you mean?" And then I asked, "What do you mean? What do I mean?" Well, they will be able to see that $15,000 was donated, but unfortunately, the agent tells me there's nothing they can do until the refund is processed. Oof.
Oh.
So I tell them that's a big problem, as the entire GoFundMe had hardly raised that much money at this point, and surely they would have noticed their fundraiser doubling overnight. So my plan was to knock on Joe's door the following morning to give him the full story so that he could pass it along to his contacts in Bangladesh. But when I woke up the next morning, I looked at my phone and saw I had 40 plus notifications on my Facebook. Someone had sent me a friend request and had liked many of my old posts and sent me as many messages. And immediately I was concerned when I saw the individual message me with a Hindu name, but I never could have imagined when I opened the first message. This man had sent me a video of himself from Bangladesh, surrounded by dozens of hungry people holding bags of food, thanking me by name for my generous donation.
Ugh.
A big round of
Oh,
So a big round of applause for me. At this point, I leapt out of my bed and I'm pacing. Part of me wants to scream, part of me wants to crack up laughing. I start swiping through the man's messages, and it is picture after picture after picture of this Bangladeshian community thanking me for my kind donation. There was literally hundreds of photos of elderly, disabled, malnourished individuals holding signs with my name, saying thank you, thank you, thank you. Needless to say, I couldn't live with myself just donating $150 after seeing the community response to the $15,000. I decided that at least I could do was to add a zero, so I donated 1,500 instead. The charity's host was incredibly gracious and understanding. He explained to me that $1,500 goes very far in Bangladesh for urgent food relief. So ultimately, I think the whole experience was a win-win. I helped a good cause, and I got a funny story out of it. Um, so many are asking me why there is no $1,500 donation in the fund's donation history. It's because I donated to the old campaign and they started a new charity after the incident that happened. So they had to start a new GoFundMe after apparently the $15,000 donation did not go through.
oh wow.
So what do you guys think about this little situation that just occurred to the poster here?
Go
Well,
ahead, Chip.
I mean,
Go
he's
ahead, Chip.
got
Go
to
ahead.
do what he's got to do. He can't drain his account. I do a lot of charity work, individual charity work for people, and I've over donated my time, efforts, and money to people, and it never turns out well. Like there's always a downside to it. You have to always give only from your abundance because you have people around you, including yourself, that needs what you've made. And so there is a balance between. I think he found a pretty good balance by donating 1,500. I think that was probably the smart move. 150 would have been a little depressing. 1,500 is a little more legit. So I think he did the right thing.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think
Sure.
it did the right thing too. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, especially if like even if you don't, if you have the 15,000 to donate and you do decide to donate that, God bless you. But people don't have that kind of money most of the time. And if it's like, oh, because you don't want to say like, hey, I'm going to donate, 15,000. You don't have the 15,000. It's like, shoot, what do I do? You know what I mean? In this case, he obviously didn't, but then he's seen all the thank you, and he was just like, man, I I can't just give him 150 now. That makes me look like I'm a cheapskate, like I'm, just trying to placate or whatever, No, I'll do 1,500. Yeah. So yeah, a good little medium right there. Yeah. I think you did the right thing also. Chip.
Chip?
No, I agree with what Chuck said. You have to donate within your means because you still have like yourself and your family to take care of. Um, so I have over donated before on occasion, uh, just by accident, and like Chuck said, it never turns out well. It doesn't. So. But Chuck, thank you for participating in our Reddit
Sure.
story. Uh, and we'll start off the interview portion of this with just a simple question. For those that do not know, who is Chuck Huber?
Who am I? I mean, that's a good question. I would typically say that I am a husband first. That's my number one priority is my wife, because once again, we're a team, and if we're not taking care of each other's needs, we're not able to take care of our children's needs. So that's first and foremost. I suppose above that would be my relationship with whatever has created this awesome game simulation that we're in. Whatever, we're a quantum drop of the quantum computer that's running this big thing, and and that essentially is a conversation within myself, and that's me taking care of me, and then I use the abundance of that to take care of my wife, and then we use our abundance to take care of our children. So it goes in that order, and then after that, I'm what you guys know me as I'm an artist, I'm an actor, I'm a writer, I'm a director, I'm a producer, most known for voice acting. Android 17, Hiei, Emperor Pilaf. I've done like 7 or 8 characters in the Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT universe. I'm Super Android 17. I'm Android 13. I'm Garlic Jr. I'm gonna push you into the dead zone. Emperor Pilaf. Oh, I need the Dragon Balls, please. Kibito. Yes, I am Kibito. I've gotten to play a bunch of characters, and it's been an amazing ride. I mean, we've been doing this, for a long time, and I spend a great deal of my time interacting with the fans every weekend. That's my main source of income, is from the fans. So you guys are literally my boss. And so when people like you reach out and say, do you want to do a podcast? My answer is always yes, because I feel that's my boss calling, asking to have a chat with me. And so, here I am. Other things I like to do. I like to hike. I just planned a hike today, which I'm very excited about because it was on my list to plan for a while. So I'm going to go take a hike sometime in the near future with two of my boys. And by boys, I mean children. And of children, I have, let's see, my oldest stepson from a previous marriage is 35. I raised him from the time he was 2. I have 5 biological children with their mother, and then with my wife Jessica, she has 2 children, and we are expecting our first May 24th, Nora Eve. So our life is very much spiraling into a singular focus of that moment of birth, and it's wild because I've had so many kids, and every time I had kids, it was with my ex-wife and I, my children's mother and I were in a very unhappy marriage that was not easy and free and flowing like this one I have now. So it's a totally different experience. And Jess and I have been together for 10 years, and we're like, oh, we get to do something really, really new together and discover this new thing about each other as parents, because we've been step parents together, which is a very specific thing. And now we get to be, parents of a singular child, and the kids are excited about it. Baby's healthy, 6 pounds 4 ounces right now, 5 weeks left to go, probably be on the big side. And it's she's had 2 cesareans, so this will be my first cesarean, and I'm excited to see her guts. I told her I'm going to peek around the curtain and see her insides, make sure she's not android or reptoid,
Right.
Got to confirm you're human. And then we get to bring home a baby. And it's really fun because every time I've had children, I've had multiple jobs, because the success of the anime industry had not taken off until, it really started to pick up around 2013, 2014. So it's only been about 10 years that conventions have been able to really, really support a family in the way that they have. Mm-hmm. And so my job is essentially, 2 or 3 weekends a month, and then things like this in between. And I teach classes occasionally 4 or 5 times a year on Monday nights. So I'm going to get to have a baby and be dad at home with a baby. And it's going to be a new experience for me, because every time I've been parenting before, it was after pushing all the extra jobs and working my ass off, and then coming home to whatever it was that we were struggling with. And so it was always fighting through things to be a good dad. And I succeeded fairly well. I know I did a lot of reading to my children growing up, because I read through the Chronicles of Narnia twice. I read through all the Little House on the Prairie books twice. So I know I was present. I'm not sure I fully enjoyed it. I was doing it because I knew it was the right thing to do, and I wanted to be a good dad. And now I feel like I'm going to get to sort of kick back and just enjoy the baby, and then enjoy this little girl growing up, and then all our other children will grow up and go away, and it'll just be me and Jess with an only child, which is going to be a new experience for me too. So yeah, that's who I am. That's mainly what I'm looking forward to. The other thing I'm looking forward to, I'm producing a movie called Mud Life with a friend of mine I've known since I was 18. Short he made with his writing partner Gary Mills and Willie Round, called Broke Down Drone. Won a bunch of awards. Gary and Willie have both won 2 Emmys. So they're on the rise. Their star is on the rise, and Gary had me do coverage on this feature, which is where you read through the script and give notes. And I went through and did coverage twice. And he and I had wanted to work together for a long time. And he was like, "Do you want to produce this?" And I said, "Let me talk to my producing partner, Matt Tompkins." And he said, "Well, let me read the script and watch Broke Down Drone." And he watched Broke Down Drone. And then he read the script and he was like, "Let's do it." So we are full bore into producing. I've done three features in my career as producer, director, editor, cinematographer. So on the production side of the camera, and this will be my first sort of big boy producing. Going up a level in terms of production and budget. So there's more expected of me. I'm kind of learning some new ropes with my producing partner, and but it's going to be a great film. It's like kind of like Boys in the Hood on the west side of Chicago. Filmed all on locations, and I think you can see Broke Down Drone. I think it's on. I don't know what it's on. It may be on Vimeo or something. You can Google it. Let me Google it. I'll Google it next time someone else is talking. But I'll text Gary. Be like, "Where can people see Broke Down Drone?" Fabulous little short film. When I saw it, I was blown away with what they were able to do with just $12,000. So they crushed it, and so we got that same team back together, and they're going to do a feature length version based on the short. And I think it's going to be something people want to see. I think it's going to be a really, really good ride, a really good first sort of foray into this last act of my life as I use all the support the fans have given me to do one more fun little turn of the entertainment wheel and see what happens. Got a bunch of scripts in the hopper. And I can talk more about those as we go on, but it's a fun little. I've been gifted a really cool life, so I'm plenty of pain too, but that's who I am. That's basically it.
Okay, so Chip asked the question, "Who is Chuck Huber?"
Right.
I'm going to ask the question, "Who were you before you got into the voice acting, before the acting and everything like this?" Like, where you grew up, your childhood, things of that nature. Like, who were you before you transitioned into the voice actor you became?
Yeah, so I grew up. I was born in Chicago, and lived there until I was 5 or 6, and then moved north of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, to a town called Mequon, Wisconsin, and had sort of the perfect 70s, 80s childhood that you can imagine, bike riding. Like I remember, so picture this. I rode, we lived in this town of 15,000 north of Milwaukee. And I remember you had to be in second grade. That was the rule in the family. You had to be in second grade before you could ride your bike alone to what was the pharmacy next to the grocery store, which is where they had the shelf of candy and toys, and you'd take your allowance. And I think my allowance was, I don't know, 75 cents a week or something at the time. And so you'd put it, maybe went up, I think it went up 10 cents every year. And so on your birthday, then you get 85 cents. And so, you'd take your money you'd saved up and you'd go get Star Wars cards or, the Hubba Bubba bubble gum. I remember that was good. There was a candy called Chuckles, which I liked because it had my name on it. And you just kind of look around and see if there's and so keep in mind that's the world we lived in. A little 7-year-old Chuck, riding his bike 2 miles away by himself to the pharmacy. Like that's the amount of freedom we had that early. And it was like everybody talks about, you when it started to get dark, that's when kids came home. And if you weren't home, you could maybe push it a little bit, but if you weren't home by the time it was actually dark, you got in trouble. And there was, my childhood was the invention of the video games. So there were no video games. And then I remember my uncle worked at IBM, and he had on his computer, we went to his office once, and he had it was a little Star Trek game that somebody had made. It didn't do much. Then my brother had a Commodore 64, and we used to program it with these little terrible games. But then Asteroids came out, and then Space Invaders, and then Pac-Man, and then a whole bunch of video games came out. And then in Cedarburg, which was a town just next door to Mequon, there was a place called The Landing, which every Tuesday would have from, I think it was 4:30 to 6:30. So basically it was an after school program where kids would ride there after school, pay $1.50, and play all the video games you wanted. So the guy would open up the front of the video games and click it with a bunch of credits. And so, you know, we grew up that way. We grew up in this, you know, on Lake Michigan, hunting and fishing and big gardens. And then, you know, my parents did get divorced, and that was, of course, traumatic. And my mom got remarried. That was the most traumatic, because then she moved us from what was our favorite thing, which was our house, because we had a pond next to us and a rope swing and a bluff that led down to a lake. And it was just, it's a perfect little town. And we were the kind of the poor people in the town, you know, truck up on blocks in the front of the yard. We were the only ones who were kind of gardening and hunting and fishing as much as we did, because we had to eat. And we struggled financially. And we always knew the house we lived in was worth more than we could possibly ever imagine. It was our favorite thing, and we moved away from it. And, you know, now it's like $1 million house on the lake. So it's same house, hasn't been changed, it's been updated, you know, on the inside. But basically, I grew up in $1 million house as a poor kid. So we knew the house was worth a lot in our hearts. And you know, we're proved right by the market when the town, you know, grew and more rich people moved there. Then I moved to Bedford, Texas, which is right next door here to Fort Worth. When my mom got remarried, that was 7th grade. And I had a good time here in you know, junior high was a little rough. High school got better. I found the drama department and competed in all the drama competitions. I remember my very first drama competition I competed in was 9th grade. And I came home with something like 11 trophies. And
Wow.
that was when
That's good.
yeah, I was very good, very young. And it was recognized by everyone. It evened out. It still hasn't evened out. I'm still a very good actor compared to most. And and I remember my parents being very surprised when, because I had just said I'm going to a drama competition. They had no idea. They were kind of very struggling with a family of 8 that was a mixed family with very headstrong boys who were all fighting with each other. Lots of holes punched in walls and screaming and yelling and family meetings and, you know, different drama. It was not the greatest family life we had there. But the drama, doing the drama at school, I remember coming home with that box of trophies, and my parents were like, "What is going on?" And then the next weekend, I had a drama tournament. I came home with another box of like 7 or 8 trophies. And I remember my drama teacher just like handing me a folder with a prose piece in it, or handing me a folder with poetry in it that I had not prepared at all. And she goes, "Would you, I'm going to enter you in prose. Here, take this. You're going to do prose." And I'd read it over real quick. And then I'd go in and perform while reading it. And, you know, I'd get 2nd or 3rd place, having not prepared at all. I just had a real knack for it at an early age. And knew I wanted to be an actor from that time on, probably from about 7th, 8th grade on. I knew I was going to be an actor, and ended up at the National Forensic League competition for dramatic interp, and placed 3rd in the nation. And, you know, performed solo in front of 5,000 people as a 16-year-old, 17-year-old. Which is a powerful thing to do at that young, really sets the bar high for you. And I wanted to just, after my senior year, I wanted to just move to New York. I was going to move to New York and be on Broadway. That was my goal. And my parents convinced me to check out the Goodman School of Drama in Chicago. And I said, and of course we were from Chicago. My grandma lived in Chicago. I had an uncle and cousins that lived in Chicago. My brother lived, an hour and a half north in Milwaukee. I had all my friends from where I grew up, a couple hours north west at Madison, going to the University of Madison. My two best friends, Matt Schwab and Andy Garney. And so it took a little bit of convincing from them. And the way they really convinced me was they said they would, because it was a very expensive school. And they said they would, they weren't going to pay for it. They had sort of a set budget that they would pay towards college, but they said I wouldn't have to worry about paying for it while I was there. I could just do the school and work study to make spending money and to pay my bills, but that they would cover college until I had success enough to pay the bill. And so I was still not convinced. And then my best friend from high school, who had moved away my senior year, Christian Langheinrich, he was auditioning for the Goodman School of Drama too. And I was like, no way. So you're going to the Goodman School of Drama. You're auditioning for the Goodman School of Drama too. And I said, yeah. So I was like, okay, I'll audition for the Goodman School of Drama. And we auditioned together at the same audition. 15 of us in the room, and you have to do a performance, a monologue, 2 monologues, and then they do have a movement exercise and a couple of other things they put you through and questions they ask. And we both got in. And so after we both got in, I was like, okay, game over. I'm going to Chicago. And we roomed together the first year. And that was probably one of the most, that was one of my favorite times. Those 3 years at college were some of my favorite memories. Some of my best friends that Gary, who I'm doing this movie with, he was a year ahead of me at the Goodman School of Drama at DePaul. And he gave me my first job outside of work study. I worked at he was the manager of a fitness club. And so, we've known each other for, 30 years, 35 years. And John Farrick, bunch of people that I'm still friends with. So it was definitely worth it. Being saddled with whatever $60,000 of debt when I got out of school wasn't the best combination for starting off your acting career, but I did start off strong in the Chicago area. I quit. So check it out. I did 3 years of college at very expensive, and then booked a role as an understudy at the Steppenwolf.
Wow.
The role of Ralph, at an Awake and Sing. So it's the lead. I was understudying the lead at the Steppenwolf Theater, and it was with some Terry Kinney, a bunch of Steppenwolf people in it, and Barbara Robertson, some really amazing Chicago actors. So, but to do it, I had to quit school. And so that was my first big, that was sort of retribution for not retribution, but that was me reclaiming my own direction from sort of being pushed into doing college by my parents. And so I quit. I called my stepdad and I said, I'm going to take this and I'm going to quit college. I'm not going to go to college next year. And that was probably some of the most amazing times of my early career, was seeing all my friends finish out their 4th year and I was already working. And I went from that Steppenwolf show to a show at the Court Theater, House of Blue Leaves. Great part. Comes in right before the end of the first act, and he's just got a big monologue about trying to blow up the Pope because the Pope was coming to visit. Met a bunch of great actors there, and then booked Hank in Marvin's Room at the Goodman Theater. So I was booking roles at all the biggest theaters in Chicago. And then I booked Bolingbroke and Richard II, directed by David Petrarca, at the Goodman Theater. I was way too young for the role. I don't know why he cast me in it. Just visually, I didn't look old enough to have a son, and he's got a line about having a son. That was the main critique that people gave it. I got decent notes for what I did with the Shakespeare and the verse and the character. And, you know, started booking TV and film and some voiceover work in Chicago. My very first voiceover job was for Arrow the Acrobat on Nintendo. And the only thing I did, I said, Arrow the Acrobat from Nintendo, bite me. And that was the whole commercial. And I got paid like 15 grand when it was all said and done for, you know, a half hour of work. And I was like, I like this job. You know, I was competing with like that Richard II show, Nick Offerman, who is from Parks and Rec. He was in that show. He and I were always we did a movie together. He drove me to one of my first big film roles. That wasn't just it was a day player, but it was a decent part. Opposite Ben Affleck for a day. I got to punch Ben Affleck in the face. Nick Offerman drove me to we drove all through the night. I had just finished understudy duties at Steppenwolf, and then drove to go film this movie. And you know, Michael Shannon, incredible actor. He and I were always head to head. I got the Goodman role. Hank, he got the Steppenwolf role for As I Lay Dying, and so we were always competing with each other. And he's gone on to great things. And then things took sort of a sour turn with my agent. We went out to LA, and he didn't really tell me what was happening. He said we had to drive my ex-girlfriend's Miata out to her. She was working on a television series called Murphy Brown. Yeah,
I remember that show.
Yeah, she was I think her character was called Reagan or something. I can't remember. She was the conservative in the newsroom. And so I thought that's all we were doing, and we we're going to meet some people, but my agent's plans were to have me stay in LA. And I remember we got there, and I met a manager at Matt LeBlanc's house from Friends, and we went to Matt LeBlanc's house. I remember he had just ordered a crushed purple velvet couch, and the couch was delivered right before the Friends episode started. And I sat next to Matt on his new crushed purple velvet couch and watched Friends with him, which was just a wild experience, because it was back in the day when that was it was, you know, must see TV Thursday nights. And I was sitting next to the dude, and we smoked some weed and went out to dinner, and you know, it was a really wild ride. And then the next day we went and had lunch with Matt. And these are all friends of my agents. We had lunch with Matt Damon. And I remember we were sitting there having a Caesar salad on I can't remember what street, but Charlie Sheen drove by, and Matt was like, oh, Charlie Sheen. And I was kind of like, nah, you know, Charlie Sheen isn't cool. He's no John Malkovich or whatever, you know, in my And
at any point, are you thinking, is this real life? Like, is that are you thinking about this at any point while you're going through this? Or
no, I was used to. I mean, I had been chomping my way up through. So these were definitely. I mean, Matt wasn't big back then. He showed me the script for Courage Under Fire. He's like, it's a Meg Ryan, Denzel Washington movie, and I was like, oh, it'll probably be a turd. I wouldn't do it. And I had read the script to Good Will Hunting, because they'd given it to my agent, and he had let me read it in his office. He's like, you can't take Chuck, you can't, he's balding gay man Chuck, you can't take the script out of the office. You can sit right in the corner and read it. And so I read the script, and I think my agent's plan was to have me sublet. Matt, Casey, and Ben were all living together, and Casey was off on a shoot for 3 months, or a couple of months. I can't remember, but I think my agent's plan was to have me move in, sublet Casey's place and stay there. I don't think he knew how he was going to do it yet. I'm not sure if Matt knew what was happening, because he and I were both kind of confused, like, what's going on here? And it's the standard. I mean, it's what Hollywood is now known for, that it wasn't known for back then, which is yeah, after all these meetings and going to Joel Silver's office, you know, and he was huge back then with Lethal Weapon and everything, and so that was a big meeting. And so I was doing all the right LA things, and then I don't remember how it happened, but my agent had been drinking, and he, at one point, he assaulted me. He said, "You'll do what I tell you to do." That's what I remember from it, and I remember me pushing him off of me, and then I left the house, and I knew there was another actor that he had introduced me to down the street from the house that we were staying at. And so he was the only other person I knew in LA. So, and I knew he was a waiter there. And so I walked to his restaurant, and I sat at the bar, and I was pretty much out of money. And I had enough money to get a single glass of wine. And then that was it. I was done. I was like, I'm fucked. I have no idea what I'm going to do, but I'm not going to deal with that guy anymore. And I guess this actor called my agent, and they talked, and then they got me a place to stay that night that wasn't at where my agent was, because I was done with him, because that was like I didn't have a great impression of LA anyway. It was kind of, a lot of people wanted to know who I was because of the people I was walking around with. So there's that, like, Boomerang, you know, Ricochet. They can't approach the big dogs. So, but I'm nobody, so they can talk to me. And I remember I was a cook. I was a sous chef at a vegetarian restaurant back in Chicago. So when people would ask me who I was, or what I did, I'd say, "Oh, I'm a cook. I'm a cook. I work at a vegetarian restaurant in Chicago." And so I downplayed what I was doing there. And the reaction people had when I would say that is that the lights would go out in their eyes and I would disappear. And I was like, nobody gives a shit about the art or the theater, or it just was not as real as Chicago. And there was nothing, like, I was already sort of sour on it. And then when my agent was like, "You'll do what I tell you to do," as he was, trying to, I don't know, he was about to have his way, thought he was about to have his way with me, and that didn't happen. But I remember I was at this dude's house, and I just called my mom, and I said, "I need a plane ticket tomorrow. Can you get me a plane ticket from the John Wayne Airport? And I need to come home." And I didn't even really understand what was happening. I just knew I had to get out of there. And so my agent picked me up the next day, and drove me to the airport, very tense, very angry. He dropped me off at the airport. I flew back to Dallas to see my mom, and then she flew me back to Chicago. And my agent came back from LA, and I suddenly I didn't have an agent. I didn't have my voiceover agent. No theaters would audition me. I couldn't get an audition anywhere. Nobody would talk to me. None of the other agents in town would talk to me. I had been completely destroyed. My entire career was sort of lost in a minute. So after that, I was newly married, and I told my previous wife, my children's mother, I said, "What do you want to do?" And she said, "I want to go to college." And I said, "Okay, pick a college, and we'll go to that place, and you can go to college." And she picked this little classical liberal arts school in Fort Worth, where my family was, my brother, my sister, and my parents. And so I dropped everything in Chicago, which was already gone, and moved to Dallas, Fort Worth, and then started a theater company. And one day dude Brad Jackson walked in and he was like, hey, you should go audition for this Dragon Balls thing. And I was like, Dragon Balls? That sounds like porn. And he was like, no, it's Japanese anime. And I was like, okay, so it's definitely porn. And he's like, no, call this dude. His name's Chris Sabat. And I called him and he was like, hey, man, yeah, come on, audition. It'll be great. And I auditioned and got the role of Garlic Jr. and, you know, kept working in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and started making movies with my friends and did some, you know, guest spots and day players and some lead bad guys in some films. But mostly you know, that's where, you know, fast forward 10 years and anime starts to take off. And suddenly I had a career, which is way different than I thought it would be. But it was still ultimately, it's very satisfying and more conducive to family life for sure than living in LA would be. There's too much politics and too many scumbags in LA for sure.
Yeah.
Less so now. I never thought Harvey Weinstein would go down. Everybody knew about Harvey, and the fact that he went down was incredible. That was like, holy shit.
Yeah, that was one of those, like, anybody I've ever spoken with that was in Hollywood was like, we knew about Harvey and we just didn't know that he would ever like fall from grace.
No, it was pretty incredible. And we people knew about Kevin Spacey too. I had a friend I did a play with, and he said hit on, but you know, whatever. He knew Kevin Spacey was a dirty old man.
Yeah.
I don't know, when people out there in California, I guess it's a saying that I heard a long time ago, but it kind of makes sense. When you think you're invincible, you stop looking over your shoulder, and
It's
then
true.
you get popped. You know, so
It's true.
yeah.
Yeah.
When you least expect it, you will be completely destroyed by your own dumb fuckery. That's for sure.
Yes.
Merch. That's what we're doing. Merch.
Um, so
So-
before we talk too much about anime, I'm sure that's what most of our listeners are here for.
Sure.
But I'm very interested. I read an article that said you directed and wrote a musical called Arbor Day, and also you produced, co-wrote, and co-starred in a bilingual feature called Fragility of Seconds.
La fragilidad de los segundos es mi film favorita. Es un film excelente.
I
Yeah,
believe you.
yeah. Fragility
He
of
said it
Seconds
was an excellent film.
Yeah.
Like I said, I believe you.
The Fragility of Seconds was the first one I did, and that happened because I was playing Laertes in Hamlet at the Dallas Theater Center, and there was this dude named Matt Tompkins who was there, and I still remember him. It was after a show one night. He just popped his head and he was like, "Hey, Chucky, you wanna go to Mexico and make a movie?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, dude!" And he was like, "All right," and that was it. I was like, "Okay." When I said we got to do it on spring break because and he was like, "We're going spring break. That's when we're doing it." I'm like, "All right, let's do it." And me, him, and another dude, Julio Cedillo, we threw, you know, camera and equipment, a little jib arm, and some mics, and lots of battery packs, and you know, bounce car, whatever, a bunch of stuff that we had. We threw it all in the van, and we drove to Mexico. And I remember my children's mother, she was very against me doing this. And I remember she said, "I can't believe you have the balls to do this." And I was like, "Well, I'm going to do it. I don't care if you don't want me to do it." She's like, "You're going to get killed by drug dealers." And then, you know, we were filming there for about a week. We were writing the story in this like 14-hour drive there. I was writing it all out on these napkins that I had. So the whole story was on 5 napkins, sort of outlined. And then we would write lines and write scenes and then film them. And there was one scene that was taking place in the middle of the street. And my buddy Matt he's tempered now, but back in the day, he was a bit of a hothead. And we were filming in the middle of the street, and this truck kept driving through our scene we were trying to film, just sort of circling the block, looking at us, what we were doing. And he was like, yeah, keep moving, asshole. Well, these guys were, cartel guys, and they got out of their truck, and we have it all. I was shooting at that point, so I had the camera on my shoulder, and they come out of the truck, and Julio's getting indignant because these are the guys, and like I'm catching parts of it. My Spanish wasn't as good back then, and he takes a swing at Julio, and Julio blocks it, and it hits his wrist, and his watch breaks off. And I'm just on camera going, no hay problemas, no hay problemas. I'm like, holy shit, we're gonna get in a fight. And then they left. And they didn't know, they had no connection to why we were in that neighborhood, but we were filming in front of Julio's Tio and Tia's house. And so we went into their house, and we're in his cousin's bedroom, and we're like Kilroy, just with our noses looking out and the guys are driving around with their guns, and they're looking to kill us. And I was like, holy shit, my wife was right. We're going to get killed by drug dealers. And then the policia came later after Tio Pancho, his uncle came home, and Tio Pancho watched the video, and he got out his machetes, and he was making a show like you don't disrespect our guests. And then they called the police, and the police watched the video, and they were like, you don't want to press charges. And we were like, and I was catching parts of it, and they were like, well, we'll take them in. We could take them in, but they'll be out tonight, and then they will definitely come and kill you. And so we were supposed to film at the cockfights that night. My character was a Scottish grifter, and which was fun because I got to speak Spanish with a Scottish dialect. I keep accent. ¿Dónde está el centro? So that was a fun little challenge. And it was a fun party trick. Every time I'd meet someone new, they would make me speak Spanish with the Scottish dialect. And so we were supposed to film at the cockfights, this big rodeo, and my character was just out of prison and trying to make one last score. And the police, la policia, were like, don't go to the cockfights. They were like, that's where they're going to be, and they'll see you, and it won't be good. And so instead, I said, why don't we film at the paleta shop? And so we went to the ice cream place, and it turned out to be a much funnier scene because my character was trying to make a deal with these guys who were really two tough looking guys, and the two super tough looking dudes eating paletas just was this great dichotomy of like weirdness. And so it turned out to be a better scene. And then we wrapped up as much as we could, and we had to get home. And we didn't get everything we wanted, so we made another trip back probably 4 or 5 months later, and filmed the rest of what we needed to film, and then edited it. And it took a lot of effort on my friend Matt's, my producing partner's part, to get it over the line. And it won best film at Houston World Fest. It was a very nicely recognized film, and was sort of the beginning of that. And then after that, I was so then I did Arbor Day the musical, which is the world's best and only September 11th musical comedy. So I made a September 11th musical comedy, songs like Let's Roll and Rock on United 93, and Firefighter Jesus is probably my favorite song. Firefighter Jesus, break through the flames and rescue me. Because that day was pretty wild for me, because I knew whatever the official story was total horseshit. And I was like, the buildings don't just disappear. I'd done construction work all my life, and like just to break down walls in between offices was almost impossible. So when I saw what happened to those buildings, I was like, that's some horseshit. And so my response artistically was to make a movie that was about a director putting together a play about September 11th. So it's a sort of docu-dramedy about actors trying to do a play about September 11th, and a lot of intertextuality and sort of life meets art stuff. And some really, really great performances, some good musical numbers. The whole film falls apart a little bit at the end. I worked with this producer who is just a total douchebag and not a good person, and he kind of shoved the film in the wrong direction and took my ending out and made it go another way. And so it kind of didn't have the punch that it would have had with my ending, but I'm still proud of it. I'm still proud of how it ended up. I ended up having to buy the movie back from him, and when he handed it to me, handed me the hard drive with the movie in it. He goes, "Here's your godforsaken movie," and he dropped it on the table, and it like the hard drive slammed on the table. And he was just probably one of the worst people I've ever met in my life at the time. He's since had a baby, so he's probably tempered himself a bit, but he was a godless hedonist heathen that had no morals. I used a lawyer too, so I mean that kind of goes hand in hand. But real just quality douchebag. And but I finished it, and it was sort of too far over the line to change the ending back, and I just kind of tightened it up and got it distributed, and it was on Amazon Prime for a while. And the one of the fun stories from that was when I was going out to Washington, D.C. to research the movie. A friend of mine from college, once again, she was the daughter of the highest ranking military officer killed at the Pentagon, Karen Maud. Her dad was Lieutenant General Timothy Maud. And I knew I couldn't, pitch to all the victims' family members, but I knew one. And she was a very high profile one. And I was like, well, let me pitch my wacky September 11th movie to her. And she had me meet her at her dad's grave at Arlington National Cemetery. And then she took me to the Pentagon Memorial, where she's a docent. She pointed to a window and she's like, "That's where the plane hit. And that's where my dad was." And we talked and talked and talked. And then we went to an Irish pub and had some food and talked some more. And she didn't agree with everything I thought. But she definitely agreed with putting questions to that day. She definitely said that there needed to be light shined on it. And so I made the movie. It didn't really, I was hoping to get murdered by the Taliban or something. I was hoping somebody would try to kill me for making it. And then I had told my producing partners, I said, if I die of a mysterious heart attack while I'm in DC, that the Illuminati got to me. Mm-hmm. And I finished up with Karen and then went to visit my sister-in-law, who was a Bloomberg bureau chief in Lagos, Nigeria. And I had seen her in Lagos a couple of years earlier when I was helping a priest friend of mine with his school there. And saw her new baby, went back to my bed and breakfast, started feeling weird during the night, and then woke up in the morning and felt worse and worse and worse, and got in the cab to go to the airport. And halfway to the airport, I was like, fuck, I am having a heart attack. And had the cab take me to the hospital, and they stripped me naked, put a stent in me, and then put me in a helicopter as quick as they could and flew me to the best cardiac hospital in the country, and they proceeded to do a quintuple bypass on me. And so my producing partners were like, holy shit, they tried to off you. And I was like, nah, whatever. But then I sort of thought back on it, and there was this couple I met at the bed and breakfast. That tells you how long ago it was. And they said they were from Kenosha, which is right next to Mequon. And I started sort of like shorthanding some Milwaukee stuff, talking about Summerfest and the Jazz Oasis, and they just kind of had blank stares for me. And when I was really I was struggling to carry my suitcase down the stairs and struggling, I was like, oh, that's how like, oh shit, something's wrong, because it shouldn't be hard to walk down the stairs with a suitcase. And I was like, damn it. And she and her husband were in the little breakfast area, and she couldn't stop staring at me struggle with this suitcase through the living room, and the husband would not look up, and he was very purposely not looking up. And so I don't know, it's maybe they tried, maybe they're the ones who tried to kill me, or maybe I just had a heart attack. I was 39 at the time. It's a little weird to have that big a heart attack. 99% occlusion in the LAD, the Widowmaker. doctors, they were the first doctors, they were like, we don't know why you're alive. And I was like, well, my wife is pregnant with our fifth and I've got a lot to live for. And they were like, no, 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 no. We don't know why you're alive right now talking to us. Your compression factor is down to 8%. You shouldn't be conscious. And I was like, oh, and they're like, we're calling a helicopter. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was cracking jokes, and it was probably one of the happiest days of my life because I'd been in such a miserable marriage. And at that moment, all of those problems disappeared, and I got to let go of all that responsibility and just focus on me. And so I was cracking jokes and making everybody laugh. And the orderly wheeling me to the helicopter, he was like, I heard you're Android 17. And I was like, yeah, man. He's like, stay in there, hang in there, man. We need you. I was like, all right, game on, man. And and then had a little surgery and flew back to missed Christmas that year with my children. Had the Skype call with them for Christmas. Had Christmas in a little bed and breakfast and with my stepdad. And we eventually got back when I was okay enough to fly, and got back and rehabbed for about 2 months, and then called action on the movie. I wasn't not going to let a little murder stop me.
You said a quintuple bypass?
Yeah, 5.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's what my dad had. My dad had that too.
Yeah.
Pretty much he had, he told me, he goes, basically, son, my surgery was a frame off restoration. That's what he told me it was, because he just had to basically just replacing parts. And he said, he told me, he's like, just sell me for parts. I don't care at this point, and this was, God, what was it? 2018, 2019? It was 2018. Yeah. Because we're coming up on, because we're coming up on 2024 now. So it's been a while. So
I know all about it.
Yeah.
That's the story of those 2 films.
That's
you guys are
awesome.
picking all the right stories, man.
No, like I'm writing down some of this information. Like, what's the name of the movie again?
Arbor Day.
Arbor Day, yes.
It's
Arbor
on
Day, the
Tubi
musical.
right now. It used to be on Amazon Prime, but when they did the big purge on Amazon Prime,
it's somewhere.
It's on Tubi. Okay.
Tubi, Tubi.
Yeah,
yes,
definitely checking that out.
Yep.
Bunch of voice actors in it too.
Awesome. So you said your first anime role was Dragon Ball?
Yeah, Garlic Jr., Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah. Where do you go from there? Like at that point, that's probably the biggest anime, right?
So when we did it, it hadn't caught fire yet, because we did Dragon Ball Z first, and then went back and recorded Dragon Ball.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think Yu Yu Hakusho, and then GT. Blue Gender was in between there, but it was not considered. It was very much looked down upon by the acting community, because it didn't come out of the acting community. I mean, Chris Sabat's an opera singer. Sean Schimmel's a professional French horn player. They're not actors. They're not real actors. They're fine for anime and stuff, but you give them any real text and they would fall apart like a house of cards. They're great for what they do, but they're not artists. They're not actors, and they're so the whole thing sort of started with people who weren't really from the acting community. Sabat used to say I was the first real actor they hired, because I think I was the first working actor they hired. They hired a bunch of people who were like, wanted to be actors or were thinking about it, and they didn't know how to sort of integrate with the acting community. And so when I auditioned, I got Garlic Jr., and I remember it was the audition, even setting up the audition, Sabat was like, yeah, man, come on in. Do you know the bank building on Roof Snow, like the Roof Snow exit? There's like a bank there. So like, come on in there. And like, you'll find the offices at 4:30 tomorrow. Will be great. You can get to the parking lot, but like going through the gas station, it's like a little quicker. You can skip the light. So it's like this totally hinky thing. It was not like auditions I was used to. And I auditioned for Garlic Jr. and he's like, you think you can do this guy? Like this little alien dude? And I was like, yeah, I can do that. And I was like, I'm gonna push you into that dead zone. And he was like, oh man, that's awesome. Do you think you can record it? And I was like, now, can you record it? Like, can you record it? And I was like, what do you, didn't you you weren't recording the audition? You need me to do the audition again?" He's like, "No, man, you got the part. Like, that's great. Can you just go ahead and like, I got to get this episode turned in. I'm kind of behind." And I was like, "This is the stupidest shit I've ever auditioned for." And I was convinced it was just a scam or not really legit, and these guys were just goofing around, because I was like, I'm never. And like literally at the end of the session, he ripped a page out of a spiral notebook and was like, "Give me your address, man, so I can pay you." And I was like, "This, there's no forms to fill out. There was no receptionist. It was a plastic table with a tiger blanket over it for sound attenuation." So it was super janky at the beginning. And I was like, "Sure, dude. Yeah, I'll give you my ad." So I was totally convinced I was never going to get paid. And then like a week later, I got paid. And I was like, "Oh, holy shit, I guess this is real." And it was super fun recording it. I mean, Sabat is one of the most charming, awesome, talented people. He's super talented in all these amazing ways. He's fine for anime acting, but he's way more talented in all these other ways that are incredible. And I always, whenever I see him, I'm like, "Man, it's a shame you don't do something with all that talent." Like, it's sad. Like, it is a sad waste of talent. That, I mean, and it's great. Doing anime stuff is great, but it does not begin to scratch the surface of what that man is capable of. And I tell him every chance I get, like, "Come on, man, do something awesome and amazing." And I worked with him and this other dude for a long time doing film stuff, and I kept trying to get them to take a risk and break out, do something awesome, and they were just too scared of failure. And that's one thing I'm not scared of. I am not scared of failing. I'm really good at failing, that's for sure. Spectacularly sometimes.
We are too.
Yes.
Yeah. That's the way to be. That's the way to be.
Well, you don't succeed unless you fail, right?
That's true.
Chuck, you have no idea how many emails that I personally have sent out to anybody to be on our show before. Like, I just sent out like this long laundry list of people, like, I want to talk to him, her, him, and like, you responded. I'm like, holy shit, I won.
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah, like, I texted the guys and was like, Chuck said he wants to be on he'll be on the podcast, and they're like, "You're lying," and I'm like, "No." Did I screenshot your email and send it to them, and they're like, "Holy shit, we won."
Yep.
I believe my exact quote was, "You're drunk, go to sleep." That's what it was like.
Yep.
Because he said it at like 12:30 at night, and like I'm already in bed, like I got to go to work the next day, and it's like, "Yo, we just got choked." I'm like, "Hold on, you're drunk, go to sleep." Screenshot.
Yeah.
Shit, I'm gonna drink now. I'm celebrating shit.
It tickles me to no end that my bosses think that way. Like, they're tickled that that their employee is going to show up for his job. I mean, that's the way I feel about it.
I'm sure you read that email and you were like, what is he talking about? Like, I don't know any of these people. Why?
No, well, I mean, you'd be surprised. It's pretty standard. I get approaches, and I almost always say yes to everybody that asks me. And sometimes they have to wait a month or two because I'm just too busy. Occasionally one will get lost in the shuffle because I've put it off too long, because I'm too in the middle of too many things, and I just don't have the bandwidth for it. But I had the bandwidth immediately. I was like, I can do that one. So I was, if I can, and I can get it done, and I can do it quick and say yes quickly and do the work quickly, that's always my favorite. So I don't have to like think about it.
Yeah.
Well, we do greatly appreciate it.
Yes.
I'll tell you a funny little story. We actually previously met at a convention. You'll probably not remember this at all. It was in Chattanooga, Tennessee. You were at a convention called Metrotham Con.
Oh yeah.
And it was your birthday, and we presented you with a cake,
Yep.
Yep.
for your
Yeah,
birthday.
and we
Yes, I
filmed it
remember
and
that.
everything. Yeah.
That was
So
us.
That
that
was
was
us.
us.
That was you guys.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
I owed you. I freaking owed you for that cake. That was good cake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that was just kind of full circle for us with
That's
you.
awesome. That's
Yeah. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
excited.
Yes.
So I have to ask this question. I ask this question to everybody, and you're gonna be like, no, I can't answer this. But of all the characters you voiced, they're like your children. You're not supposed to have a favorite, but there's one that you kind of enjoy a little more than the others. They all hold that special spot in your heart. I get it. I have multiple children. One of them is my favorite. They just don't know which one. Which is your favorite voice to do?
So, I mean, it's sort of a multi-layered question because if it's just physically, what is the most physically fun or artistically fun character to do? I mean, you got to take all of everything into consideration. So the ones who are very close to my favorite, probably from a character arc standpoint. Dr. Stein from Soul Eater is one of my favorites, and it was also a great experience working um, with the guys on that particular property, just because it was so Zach and Peter. It was so much fun working with them after having worked with them on Shin Chan. So I had a real good relationship with them. So it was a lot of fun to step back into the booth with them. So the recording process was great. Character arc was great. The art was great. I loved the story. That was very fun from just a straight up acting standpoint. That's probably the acting wise. That's probably my favorite. From a fan or a career standpoint, obviously Android 17 is the GOAT. He won the Tournament of Power. He was the baddest villain in the DBZ series. His fight with Piccolo is probably one of the best fights in the whole DBZ universe.
Legendary.
And so he's incredible for those reasons. Will live on for a very long time. And it's just a complete honor to be associated with Toriyama's work in that way. And Toriyama's, so well respected, and it's just amazing that I get to claim to be a part of what he was able to do. And so it's an honor to be part of it. But if you had to pin it down to just one, the very first time I went to a convention, I thought I was going to a convention like I had gone to conventions as an actor before, to pass out flyers or to work a booth or to learn a script and tell people about, whatever I was going to have to tell them about. I thought I was working as an actor, and Funimation was like, "You want to go to San Diego Comic-Con?" I was like, "Sure, I'll go to San Diego Comic-Con." And so I thought I was going to be working as an actor promoting Yu Yu Hakusho, which is what we were promoting at the time. And I got there and they were like, "Okay, your first autograph signing is from 2 to 6. And I was like, "Autograph signing? Who's going to want my autograph? This is stupid. This is the dumbest promotion I've ever heard of." And they're like, "Just show up at the table at 2. And I showed up at the table at 2, and they sat me down at the table and there was no one there. And I was like, "This is the dumbest thing. So I'm going to sit here begging for autographs. This is so stupid." And I was very arrogant about it because, and I was, and still to some degree am now, a little bit more tempered, but I'm very confident about my work and about the industry and what I'm capable of doing. So I'm always, gonna give my expert opinion on acting and art and the process and the craft. And this was part of the business side of that. And I thought I knew more than stupid little Funimation. And they were like, "No, Chuck." And they pointed, and there was this line that went around this hall. It was one of the smaller halls, but it was like a line. Like, I don't know, it must have been 100, 150 people in the line. And they were like, that's your line." I was like, "That's my line? What?" And then they kind of released the line up to the table and put a marker in my hand, and no one told me what to do. I didn't know what I was doing. And suddenly this girl in front of me she's talking about Hiei and how important Hiei is. I'm trying to catch up because I'm just like, what is happening? What is going on? Because I had no idea. And she was like, and she started telling me the story about her dad had died and Hiei was their favorite character. And she started crying, and I got up from behind the table and gave her a hug. And we just talked and talked and talked. And she had something for me to sign, and I signed it. And they kind of had to tell me, like, Chuck, you've got a big line. You can't spend this much time with every person. So they kind of had to stop what I was doing with the first person. I must have talked to her for, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes. And so they were like, you can't do that with everyone. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. She was crying. And so then, the first 40, 20 signatures were all like my third grade paper, right at the top, Chuck Huber. I didn't have an autograph signature. And then they start to figure out what's my autograph signature. And, after 2 hours, I started figuring out I was like, holy shit, I'm signing autographs. And so those were all Hiei fans, mostly Hiei fans, some Android 17 fans too. But we were doing promotions for Hiei, so that they did, or for Yu Yu Hakusho, so they'd done advertising for it. And then, we were still recording the show at that time too. And so then I came back to the show having now become, someone who signs autographs. And that happened, very surprisingly. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. And I wanted to do it again. I was like, that was really fun, meeting the fans and talking to them like that. And so then I started doing conventions after that. And so Hiei, if you had to make a choice, Hiei is my number one.
I think,
but Android 17 and Dr. Stein are close second.
right.
I respect those choices.
Yeah,
for sure.
I respect the choices too, but I do got to talk to you about one character that you voice. What many people, because we go to all these different conventions and we've asked different questions like who's the worst, who's like the worst of the worst, right?
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, we normally get 3 different responses. Roger, you're gonna have to help me out with this. Who's the bad guy from Hunter x Hunter? I can't think of his name off the top of my head.
Ahsoka.
We get Ahsoka. We get God, from Dragon Ball. I can't remember. It's not Broly. Broly's actually a good bad in a sense.
Well,
but anyway, Shao Tucker's the one that we get more often than not.
Yeah.
So what was the thought process when they presented you with the character of Shao Tucker and his backstory and his character arc and stuff? And how is his story, I guess, different from like all the other ones that you've done, like the Android 17 and so on and so forth?
Well, he is dead. I just recently I think it was a Rolling Stone tweet or something, listing the 10 worst villains in the history of everything. And Shao Tucker was number 4, right up there with the terrible people from Game of Thrones and terrible people from all sorts of Darth Vader. I was on a list with Darth Vader.
There you go.
So I remember that was bragging rights with my buddies. We have text thread with these guys that I play poker with, and we do a poker trip up to Broken Bow, Oklahoma every year. Film guys that we all work together and want to help each other make movies. And I remember that was they're not in anime, but I'm in anime, so that was bragging rights for me. I was on a list. My character was number 4, or 4th worst villain in all of history. And when I recorded it, it was not. I thought it was funny. I was like, that's freaking hilarious what he did. That's and you just play the scene because you got to play the scene, and it doesn't hurt you or affect you because you're doing your job. And I'm just focused on how much I need to keep my license and that, and the real true belief that there's going to be some good that comes out of this. And then I saw it, and I was like, oh my God, this is terrible. I was like recording. I was like, I'm a horrible person. And they, it's one thing recording it, which is always awesome and always fun. It's very rare that something you do as an actor has an emotional toll on you. You're kind of a bad actor if it does. I see actors like, oh, it was too draining on me. And I'm like, it's pretend, shut up. It's like, it's not, just shut up and do your job. And don't be such a wuss. But when I saw it, I was like, oh my God, this is really terrible. And then I started getting the fan reactions at the table, which it's very playful, although it's incredibly serious at times, because they know they are actually physically mad at me. And I know they're joking. I know we're playing a part. I know we're integrating trauma. I know they had trauma around Shao Tucker, because what happened was DBZ came out and parents were like, yeah, that's fine. They can watch that. And then Full Metal Alchemist came out and they're like, it's probably like DBZ. And a bunch of parents let their 8-year-olds watch Full Metal Alchemist. And it did something that had never been done before to someone or something you loved. So it was this like brain bending, jarring, like broken universe crack into the depths of annihilation that you kind of weren't prepared for and didn't want it to happen and wanted it to rewind, don't do that, do something like, and you can't change it. And for the mind of an 8, 9, 10, 12, anybody young, even older people are affected by it. But I think it affected the fandom so much because they were at an age when they probably shouldn't have been watching that show. And it did something that I think was kind of beautiful, because it does something like that does teach you something about life and preciousness of life and the barbarity of that sort of grotesque use of science. So I think it imprinted on a lot of the fandom in a way that is really fun to play with when they come up to the table. I look at it as like helping them make it funny for them. And so I used to have a little Nina Alexander plushie, and I'd pull it out and I'd be like, Edward, kill me. And they'd cry. And then I go, the cow goes moo, the cat goes meow, the dog goes Edward. And just they would fall on the ground comically crying or yell screaming and run away. And I still do it to this day. I did it just this past weekend, 5 or 6 times. And it's my wife made a lovely print. My wife is an artist, and it's a print of Shao Tucker holding the hand of Nina, and she's holding a little stuffed dog that looks like Alexander. And typically when I sign it, I get your name, and I'm like, Brian wants to do it as a little quote from Shao Tucker. Brian wants to see a trick. Fetch, Nina, fetch. And that just makes people really angry.
I love it. I love it. I love everything about it.
Yeah.
The cringe is washing over us as we speak. Look at Roger. He's damn near in tears right now.
You know me, Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, in my opinion, is the greatest anime of all time. So
very good.
I take the highs and the lows, even though. So it's funny because anime has tons of Neko girls, a lot of cat girls, but there's only one dog girl.
I wonder what that would be called. Do they have a name for it? If we got Neko girls,
No, I don't think there's a name just for it.
I'm gonna find it out because that's gonna be my new joke.
I believe Nina is literally the only quote unquote dog girl in anime as of right now.
I think so.
Yeah, there's wolf, foxes, and cats, but there's not an actual dog girl.
There's only one dog.
Yep.
I don't think too many con goers who dress in cosplay are going is that. If you be honest,
have you not seen
I haven't seen any since we've been doing conventions. I haven't seen any unless you've seen them and I didn't see.
There's a giant.
I've seen a couple.
Yep.
I haven't seen one yet.
I've seen a giant Nina walking around dog outfit.
I saw a Shao Tucker holding a giant stuffed Nina Alexander that had LED glowing eyes in it.
Oh, that I need. Oh,
yeah.
That I need.
He was awesome.
That I need.
I have pictures of him somewhere. Just a heads up, I got about 9 minutes left, and then I get. Yeah.
Oh, you're
Awesome.
good.
You're good, man.
Yeah. We'll throw this to you. Where can the fans see you next? When's your next convention?
So I'm going to be at C2E2 this upcoming
Chicago.
weekend.
Chicago.
I'm going to be at Heroes Hideaway booth signing with all the other androids and Linda Young as Frieza. I think she's there too. So it's going to be a great group. Not in the autograph hall. I think it's in the Heroes Hideaway. I can't remember the booth number. But going back to Chicago, I haven't been to Chicago in a long, long time. Not for a convention, not C2E2 ever. So it's going to be a fun little weekend for me. Get to see my buddies that I'm working with on this next film, and just see Chicago and the fans there. And then after that, I am in, where do I go next? Houston for a shop signing, Zobi shop, Nerd Boulevard, I think is what it's called. And then I'm at Anime Town, Utah. And then I'm at Norfolk, Virginia for a one-day con. And then I have a baby. And then I'm not doing anything for a couple of weekends for sure, at least.
Awesome.
And then I'm out in I don't know where I go after that. We'll see.
Yeah.
All depends on that baby, man. Energy and prayers that everything goes good.
Of course.
For sure,
Absolutely.
for sure.
Absolutely, man.
And you can find me on Twitter, Chuck_Huber, TikTok at Android Huber, Instagram, I think it's Chuck Huber as well. ChuckHuber.org is my website. It's got information about my classes. I teach classes 4 or 5 times a year. I'm in the middle of one right now, 2 more sessions left. Information, my email's on there. Typically, if you email me, I set up a little 15-minute Zoom consult. And so, it's, let me see if you're a good fit for the class. And then I fill the class and teach the class. But yeah, other than that, it's gonna be me and baby time, man. That's all I'm gonna be doing.
Fun times.
That's awesome.
Yeah, very, very fun times. Exactly.
I love those times.
Yes.
Yes. Well, Chuck, I was once told that the most precious thing that a man can share is his time. So we greatly appreciate you sharing your time with us this evening. Thank you so much. It has been an honor. Learned a ton from you. Had some laughs, of course, and cannot wait to see you at the next convention in person.
Yes.
Awesome. The honor was mine. Like I said, you guys are my boss. I don't run this show, the fans do. So, I protect my family time when I need to, but I always make time when you guys come calling. So I'd love to come back, do the show again when you roll around to that cycle, and we'll tell all new stories. Maybe I'll have some new movie stories that'll be fun to tell.
That'd be awesome, man. That'd be really awesome.
We will pencil that in for sure.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes, absolutely. If you want to hang out with us for just one quick second while we pay a few bills real quick.
Hold on real quick.
Go ahead, Raj. Go ahead.
So, I don't know if you know, have you heard of the place called Galloping Ghost Arcade in Chicago?
No.
It is the largest arcade in the USA, and they have almost 900 arcade cabinets.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you get a chance, I know you're gonna be busy. If you're able to swing by, look for Galloping Ghost, and it's like a 4-story building of arcade.
Wow. I will check that out for sure.
Yes.
Shit, I'm gonna go check that out.
I want to go so bad. We need to make a Chicago trip. We've been saying it for a while, but
yeah. I've been wanting to hit C2E2 for years since we started the podcast. That is one convention that I do want all of us to go to. And then I guess if we're in Chicago, we definitely check out the Galloping Ghost. But anyway, yes. But before we end this tonight, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning into tonight's episode. Chuck, once again, we appreciate you for being here. Chip, Roger, anything you guys want to say before we get out here this evening?
As always, please do not leave without leaving a like, comment, share, and subscribe on Spotify and right here on YouTube.
Your turn, Raj.
And as always, thank you guys for the support. Without you guys, we aren't able to do cool stuff like this. Like Chuck says, you guys are our bosses. We do this for you guys. We try to do what we can for you and hopefully entertain you. And, without you guys, we wouldn't have this great opportunity to meet someone who we've listened to and seen for years and actually get to have a cool sit down conversation. So thank you guys. We love you. Thank you for the support.
And if you do want to continue to support Movement Radio, make sure you check out streamlabs.com/Movement Radio /merch and go copy some merch. We got a couple of new merch ideas in our heads right now that we're eventually going to put on paper, and then we'll get it to you guys as soon as we possibly can. Once again, Chuck, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really do deeply appreciate it. Thank you guys for watching, and until next time, I'm Talon Williams.
I am Chip Hazard.
I'm Roger Sierra.
And he is Chuck Huber.
I am Chuck.
And this is Movement Radio.
God's plan.